Hello everyone and welcome back. So my people, the fire is still burning. A reporter in USA has come out to give an insight of what Donald Trump plans to do next concerning the buying of Christians in Nigeria. But before we get into that, let's look at this headline. It says, breaking, Tinubu fearfully aborts Washington trip. Lobby to meet Trump at G20 summit scheduled for November 22nd in South Africa. Now, many Nigerians have reacted concerning this because Donald Trump has since September said that he's not going to be at that summit. And now people are now wondering, why is Tinubu still lobbying to go and see a man and that said that he's not going to be at that summit? So people are saying now, why didn't he just go straight or book appointment with him, just go straight to United States of America and visit him there, have the discussion over there? Why is he afraid of going to United States of America? Guys, you know that this has been an issue. So many times he has traveled to France, he has traveled to UK, even as he become president. But in leg never try for once enter United States of America. And people are still wondering, what is he afraid of? So guys, now take a look at this video and please drop your comment on this in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much as you now take a look.
Here in a chilly, rainy Washington, where there was a lot of surprise over the weekend on Saturday. President Trump announced that he was potentially going to take strikes within Nigeria to protect Christians there. He then on yesterday, actually reiterated his desire to protect Christians in Nigeria. And so we are beginning to wake up here in Washington with a lot of questions. Will there be U.S. military efforts in Nigeria?
Okay, James. Well, let me just, for purposes of clarification, is there any action against the groups responsible for sectarian violence who would, by necessity, the necessity for Nigerian intelligence getting assistance as they are so embedded into the country? Don't you think success will be very difficult without this intelligence element?
You know, you're absolutely right. The president has stated his desire to, potentially use military action. But as we all know, it would be very difficult and actually impossible to do any action within Nigeria without the support of Nigerian intelligence. Policy analysts here believe that this is an opportunity for Nigeria to partner with the United States, with the United States Department of War, as it's now called, to try to figure out what could be done jointly. Sharing of intelligence, sharing of information, sharing of strategies for the U.S. and for Nigeria to partner and to do something together. I think it would be very, very unlikely for the U.S. to move within Nigeria militarily on its own.
Thank you, James. The president's team would, by necessity, need small teams, possibly from a joint task force, Horn of Africa. Don't you think this is the kind of operation they specialize in?
Yes, it is absolutely operation that the JTF Horn of Africa, which is based in Djibouti, Camp Lemonnier, this is their specialty. I had the really good fortune a few years ago to make one of the first visits by television journalists to that camp. And basically what it has done through the years is to fight insurgencies across the African continent. And these are small strike forces that have gone into countries and really with the support of the local government, of the local military, of the local intelligence, have been able to sort of put an end to some of these insurgent movements. I think the challenge in this instance is, how would you do that in a country as large as Nigeria, where these incidents are happening in different places, and as you know, in some urban places? And so, yes, there is expertise within the region. But the question is, could it act independently? Could it act without the support of Nigerian intelligence? That seems highly implausible.
So U.S. African Command is based in Germany, and are they officials? Are they aware of this development already, James?
Yeah, they are aware of it in the same way that we're all aware of it. We've learned it through the tweets of the president on his Truth Social social media app. And so, of course, if something were to happen, African Command, which is based in Germany, would certainly know more about it. You know, if you look at sort of the way President Trump has operated most recently with the attacks on ships that have been hauling drugs in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, those things happened without any mention of the fact that they were going to happen. They were just sort of really done on surprise. So in some ways, some policy analysts are saying that the fact that the president has announced his desire to do this is a real opportunity for Nigeria. You will note that the U.S. and South Africa have in the past been very, very close allies. That relationship is changing. You will recall the president of South Africa visited the Oval Office with two South African golfers. And really, President Trump sort of created a show about the number of white South Africans who've been murdered. The facts were not exactly accurate. In fact, they were quite off. But in a surprise move, the refugee numbers that the U.S. has agreed to admit moving forward for this year is now 7,500. That's the lowest it's ever been. And those numbers are largely reserved for white South Africans. And so that relationship has soured. Some people are suggesting that Nigeria could seize the moment, find a partnership, and really embrace this offer and really work with the United States to find a way to move forward together.
But even if Nigeria decides to accept this move by President Trump, what would this mean for U.S.-Nigeria relations? That is a question.
I think that's a good question. And I think, you know, given Nigeria's reliance on oil, given President Trump's real desire to continue to import oil and continue to use oil instead of more green energy sources, I think there could be an opening for a real partnership. I think the challenge, as you know, Nigeria is a large country with many, many groups. And, you know, in the South, it is primarily Christian. In the North, it is primarily Muslim. And so I think the characterization of Christian lives being under attack around the country, I think that's a bit of an overstatement. However, I do think that there is an opportunity for Nigerian interests and Nigerian diplomats to find a way to embrace the interests and use the interests to the country's advantage.
Early or way into the administration, and we're suffering from that challenge of having ambassadors who could actually, you know, put our views right across, especially in the U.S. And people had advised the Tinubu administration previously that if they had said that they didn't have enough money for all the whole postings, what of key countries in the world like the U.S., the EU, and all, just have ambassadors there who are able to project the country at least better, because in the face of better facts, I think that the U.S. wouldn't have gone the route that they've taken at the moment. And that's why I want to say that there's the call for people like Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, who was the one who, you know, brought that idea of concert of media wars, people like you know, Emeka Anyakwa and all of that. All those people are needed beside the president right now. I heard you earlier on, Dr. Abati, saying that we need men in the room, elders in the room. Yes, indeed, that is what we actually need now. The presidency should not be emotional about what is happening. Are there killings happening across the country? Yes, there have been killings. Who are these people who have been doing this? Well, most of them have been pro-jihadist groups and all of that, and even religious clerics and all of that, who don't have a clearer perspective of what's happening, have had instances to say things that infuriate these actors, including the military that's trying to fight on behalf of citizens. So if there's a call for all leaders of the country to come together and project the statehood of Nigeria rather than looking at it from a partisan position, I think that call is what President Tinubu should be doing. And the good thing is that the government has been meeting. They started talking yesterday. I mean, sources who have been speaking with Arise News told us that the National Security Advisor, other ministers in government and all of that, they've been meeting with the presidency to actually project a united front. But there must be a bipartisan approach to this issue, because that is the only way we can be able to put our message out, and the presidency must look for ways of appeasing the minorities in the country, because the minorities are suffering, whether religious minorities or ethnic minorities, especially in the north. And that's where I would like to situate it together with the question you had asked about Professor Dokna and Sheni and others coming together to come and say that they are going to have a political summit. Look, why must it be only a political summit that will come together? Why is it only when it comes to the elections that we start forming all these political groups and coming for? Why can't we convert a meeting on security? Because the North, for example, is the one at the center of this conversation, these discussions. What are Northern leaders doing to support the federal government? Yes, I know that there's the issue of politics, because whatever is happening right now is not new. In 2014, don't forget, Dr. Abati, you have a situation where APC leaders took themselves from Nigeria, including late General Muhammadu Buhari, who was the then presumption candidate of the APC, and went to meet John Kerry, former Secretary of State, to the U.S. government, and laid down all of this. And you could see that the U.S. took all the things that they said to heart, and since then the U.S. has been documenting everything that's been happening. And close to the 2015 election, John Kerry came to the country, and the U.S. tried to play an influence. Now, if we are reversing the situation, APC is now in government after having chased PDP out, and they are facing the same thing. So our politicians should know that it's not about political party or political actors, it's about the interests of the country, because tomorrow APC may not be in power, but the issue will continue. So political leaders should be meeting across the country on taming the monster of insecurity, reducing the religious rhetoric, and then, of course, reducing the ethnic rhetoric that's ongoing. This is not a problem for the Bola Tinubu administration. It's a problem for all of us, because the U.S. has started ethnic profiling, profiling of ethnic leaders, profiling of political leaders. And if all of these leaders are listed, most of these people who are quiet in the face of these issues may not be able to have their houses abroad, still belonging to them, or move out of the country because of visa restrictions and all of that. So Nigeria is on the table, and we must speak as Nigerians. And then the issues of the opposition PDP. Well, these are self-inflicted issues, and we've seen that happening over and over. Will the PDP convention still hold? Yes. I mean, if the PDP officials are smart about it, they can still go and ask for a stay of execution and then appeal the judgment and then go ahead to conduct. Because if you look at the Damagun-led ESCO now, they just have about a month left before they're able to conclude their tenure. But the judge who delivered this judgment to has to be very careful not to destroy our democracy. Why? Because how can it be that a political party, a former governing party, doesn't have a national leadership after the expiration of the former tenure of the Damagun tenure? Wouldn't that be a recipe for crisis? And that's why the Supreme Court has previously ruled that the internal affairs of political parties should not be tampered upon by the courts. But it looks like the courts are beginning to infiltrate into that. And it's like stopping an arm of government from not performing its duties. Can any arm of government do that? If you do that, that's a recipe for chaos. In the midst of what we have, the challenges and all of that, if the opposition is not allowed to go into the election alongside the governing party, we may have a crisis like is happening in Tanzania, where, for example, Tundu Lissu, the major opposition leader, is locked up. President Samia Suluhu is, quote, said to have won the election, but the victory cannot be celebrated on the streets because of what's happening. So we should all be careful. Every arm of government, let's not infuriate what is happening. And then in the midst of the allegations or counter-allegations of a coup and all of that, our democracy must be stable. We must support the current administration to ensure that we have a country to call ours. The actions of opposition leaders too must be called to question. Why is it that the PDP can't solve its own problem? Why are they embarking on exclusionary politics? When you print forms, and it's only one form that you're printing, like it happened with the likes of Sule Lamido being exempted from purchasing forms, isn't that a call for chaos? Well, there should be a very strong warning by the elders of the country, by statesmen, to the PDP that it is not the only opposition political party in the country. So it should not make the country hot. Let's ensure that there's an environment that works for everyone and not the playing of exclusionary politics.
All right, thank you very much, Suna. I'd like to ask that you expand on what you said around the fact that based on the Northern Elders Forum and some stakeholders in the North coming together to have a united front politically, that why haven't they done this for other issues concerning the North? And I want to say this across other key stakeholders who see, the lives being killed and have done nothing about this. What do you think they ought to be doing to complement the diplomatic efforts of the presidency themselves? What should elders, Northern elders, be doing? What should the Christian community be doing? What should other key stakeholders be doing at this time?
Thank you, Ayo. Good enough. The leadership of the Arewa Consultative Forum last week met with the Vice President. They are holding their 25th year anniversary sometime this month. And it's going to be an opportunity where a whole lot of leaders will gather in Kaduna. But before then, we're in a crisis. Just like the northern leaders, gathered together when we had a crisis with Niger Republic, with religious clerics coming together. President Tinubu should sit down with some of these northern leaders, bring them to the, Asura Presidential Villa, sit down and issue very strong warnings. Like President Tinubu himself knows what is going on in the North. He cannot say he doesn't know. But the thing is that the fear of taking actions ahead of his 2027 presidential ambition is what is stopping him from embarking not only on these issues of security, including the issues of reforms. Don't forget the APC-led federal government had promised us under the Tinubu campaign organization that they were going to bring a whole lot of reforms. But those reforms, ask yourself, including the El-Rufai committee that was a report that was submitted to the APC, what have happened to those reforms? Those reforms have not been able to kick off because President Tinubu is afraid that if he does embark on some of these reforms, that the North may not go with him. But the thing is about statesmanship. Must you get a second term before the country can be on the right pedestal? And also, our religious leaders and clerics and others, political leaders in the North, are we not tired of the killings that are happening? Because the North is at the table of this conversation that's ongoing. And in conclusion, the monarchs in the North also owe President Tinubu a responsibility of meeting together to support the federal government to ensure that the statements that are coming out are statements that actually work for the entire country and not just looking like it's just an APC problem or a Tinubu administration problem. These problems have been with us since 2009 when Mohammed Yusuf, the Boko Haram leader, came on board and he was killed. But the issues have not been addressed.